When we start combining map symbology together, one very important thing to keep in mind is the visual hierarchy. And visual hierarchy just kind of means bringing the most important elements of the map to the forefront, but also making other elements that are useful to the map reader visible so that the map reader can better interpret your map. This is an example from National Geographic on the march to Gettysburg and back. And let's take a look at how they've symbolized these arrows that appear all over the map and really could appear very cluttered if they weren't combined in a nice way. We can see that they divided, first of all, the Army of Northern Virginia and the Army of the Potomac into two different colors, Northern Virginia red and Potomac blue. The infantry is represented by the lightest colored arrows, and the cavalry is represented by not only an arrow that's darker, but it also has a dash pattern in order to so that you can quickly see it on the map. And then also for this particular regiment, then this is a solid color, a solid darker color, but it's also a thinner arrow, so it sits on top of the areas where the thicker arrow is. So really a lot of thought to how to use pattern and color and size of these arrows in order to make everything on this map easily interpretable. But this visual hierarchy comes up a lot. For example, if we want to put just a dot on a map to represent different cities, we might want to make that dot larger the greater the population is. And you can see that they've really made this one stand out by a much bigger dot that's also looks darker, so that, and also sometimes a lot of times the labeling comes in as well. So in this case, that would be reinforced by putting a label on the city, Duluth, it's over 50,000, that's also darker and bolder than the other labels all across the map. And we can also see this visual hierarchy here in the roads as we go from thin black lines for county roads to colored thicker or double lines for the interstate highways and the U.S. highways. Those things in the visual hierarchy, especially the colors, would really help it to jump off the map and immediately have people recognize what the most important roads in this area are. Here's another example of visual hierarchy, good and bad. On the left, we have some bad visual hierarchy. This is an area that has some roads and a creek and contours and all sorts of things, and it's really easy to lose the idea of this map, which is some bodies were found in this area where there was a serial murder, because it's hard to break out the most important part of the map from all of the other things on the map. So on the right here, they've broken that out. Instead of putting in the contours, they've just varied the shade of gray a little. It makes it quite obvious that this is the top of Mount St. Quash here. We see a creek running down it very easily into this lake that may or may not have been apparent on the left-hand side. The city and this other road stand out from all the other things like the edge of the lake and the contours that were on the previous map. And of course, the boldest thing is where the bodies were found. Not only are they black circles, but they have a little bit of white right around the edge, so they really kind of pop off the map as and off of each other. We can see the variations along the edges of the symbols as we look at this. And this is another example of visual hierarchy where they've gone not just to the symbology of the symbols, although that's quite important here, but also the entire layout of the map. So talking first about the symbols, all of these are varying in size and shade of gray, depending on how many mobile homes per county are in the area. But we can see it just stands out so much better here if we use a little more variation in size, and we use a much greater variation between light gray and black here. The areas with higher mobile home populations definitely stand out much more in this example here. They've also done some things to kind of put other things that aren't as important, such as where the county boundaries are. Lowered that in the visual hierarchy by thinning out these lines. We can see these lines are quite thick here, and they're nice and thin here, so it's not the first thing to stand out. If we're looking for where the edge of this county is, we can find it, but it doesn't draw our attention in the same way that one would over here. So visual hierarchy is a really important thing to consider when we're trying to combine symbology for various symbols and make the most effective cartographic product that we can.